All contents, including opinions and views expressed, are ours alone and does not necessarily represent the opinion of the City of Wilmington or its employees. The City of Wilmington has not approved of and is not responsible for the content of this podcast series. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to The Cop and the Shrink, a podcast exploring mental health, law enforcement, and societal issues from the perspective of a police officer and a mental health professional. Have questions about current events, social media, mental health, or police matters? Visit thecopandtheshrink.com. Let's get this episode started with your hosts, Harold Bozeman and Dennis Carradine.
All right. Welcome to the holiday edition of The Cop and the Shrink. I am with Chris Cringel because I cringed when he walked in with the out. Now, actually, very festive, my friend. Very festive. Very Festivus.
Happy Festivus.
Happy Festivus. It's all for the rest of us.
You know, we decided there was enough negativity in the world, and we were going to bring the podcast around for the Christmas season episode and bring a little joy back to the world if we can. Tell some positive stories, have some positive discussions, and
have a little fun.
Have a little fun with it.
And you did it right. You came in, you're dressed appropriately. I felt bad. I was going to wear my hat, but I did not wear my Santa hat. So
no, but you wore your Hans Gruber costume.
I did wear my. It is not in our household. Denny can tell you it is not Christmas until Hans Gruber falls from the Nakatomi building. It's just the way it is. Look, if you have a favorite holiday movie, and it's Die Hard, which it should be because that is a Christmas movie, even though that Bruce Willis him himself said it was a Bruce Willis movie, I call bullshit on the man. It is a Christmas movie. Same way Lethal Weapon is a Christmas movie.
Well, you know what? Everybody overlooks Gremlins as a Christmas movie, and that bothers me. The Mogwai was a Christmas present, for goodness sake.
Right, it was. From his father, from the really kind of weird, what was it?
From the weird
Chinese
spice
guy? Spice guy?
Yeah, the weird curiosities market.
He was the guy, he was one of the villains in Big Trouble in Little China. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
He did. This guy played up until it was him. If you go all the way back, and you remember the original, oh my God, I'm forgetting it, the original Midway. The movie Midway, the original one, where they had everybody in their entire planet in this movie. That guy actually played one of the boat captains.
Okay.
In that. Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi actually was one of the ensigns or one of the yeomans that was on the Japanese fleet and so forth. So they had all these actors. So this guy came up from Midway to selling Mogwai during Christmas. Sorry, went off the rails here. So go to thecopandtheshrink.com. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Please follow us on Facebook. And now, unbelievably, follow us on TikTok. We downloaded
strange
it.
Laws of the United States and other things.
It's actually pretty good. So with that, we've had some followers with it. We want to build a presence. We're gonna get HB over here to do a couple of the TikToks. I've done them so far. We are probably going to get Denny to go in and do a couple of TikToks for us. He's going to research Mogwai a little bit, and we'll figure that out.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but he dances a little, so
ooh.
We might see some Denny dancing.
The dancing producer. That'll tell you about a strange law. Like it's illegal to dance naked in Arizona or something like that.
Thank God. I'm moving to Arizona then. Before he gets started.
So our positive Christmas side, we have been talking about now we're well, I think for the most part what Denny said, and this is Denny's suggestion, he came in and said, you guys have really been talking about heavy topics. And most of our topics are heavy because basically of what we do and who we are,
That's true.
But we both got into our professions for very positive reasons. So, we'll do beauty before age before beauty, whatever it is. We're going to start with you, my friend.
Oh, we're going to start with me. Okay.
We are going to start with you because we want to hear the positive side, not only of policing, but the positive side of H.B. Bozeman.
Okay.
So tell us your story.
Well, let me tell you. Let me give you a little story from this past week. It's not the greatest time, I think, to be a police officer in the United States. People in this profession are starting to feel unappreciated or underappreciated. You kind of feel like everybody sees them as the villain now, like we're the enemy to be defeated. We're the source of all of society's ills. All these things that you hear people say all the time. And I know I'm starting off negative. Trust me, it gets better.
I'm waiting.
We have a group chat that my platoon uses to communicate. Like everyone's on it. From the platoon commander on down, we finally added the 4 brand new rookies. So everybody is on the group chat. It's designed so that we can share information while we're at work. But every once in a while, we just have a good old fashioned family, family bitch session for lack of a better term.
Nothing wrong with that.
So we all get on there and we just talk about whatever's on our mind. Right. So this past week, one of the mid-career fellas was feeling a bit of that pressure I talked about. I was feeling a little bit about how maybe the government that doesn't appreciate us and maybe the people don't appreciate us and the citizens are kind of vilifying us for everything we do. So we talked back and forth a little bit, and there was some positive and some negative. But when I was thinking about what everyone was saying, and I sent this message to everyone to sort of put things in perspective, I sent my message, and that's what I'm going to talk about now.
Perfect.
I sent my message to the platoon to let them know that it feels like shit right now. And we've had these ebbs and flows, and the pendulum has swung. I've been in 25 years. The pendulum has swung both ways since I've been in, right? We talked about in one of our earlier episodes how after 9/11, police, fire, EMS, dispatch, we were the princes and princesses of the country, right? Everybody was a hero. Everybody appreciated us, and it's swung back and forth a few times, right? And now we're in a slump again. But the message I sent to the platoon was that we all got into this for the most part for some of the noblest of reasons, right? We either came into it as part of a family tradition, which is a noble reason to do something, right? You're following your dad's footsteps, you're following your brother's footsteps, you're following your uncle's footsteps. Our department has been sort of a family business. We have 4 brothers from the same family on our department, and 2 of those brothers work on my platoon with me.
Oh, wow.
So we have that, and that's been something that's going on. Earlier, before they got here, we had 3 brothers from another family. We've had aunts and uncles, dads and sons.
It's amazing.
So that's one of the reasons to get into it, is that it's kind of a family tradition, which is a noble reason. Another reason people come in is they say, and it sounds cliche, but everybody comes in because they want to be that helper, right? They want to be the hero. They want to be the person who provides for someone else in a time of need, who saves the life, who solves the crime. So we all get into it for the noblest of reasons, or at least that's what we tell them when we apply and when we interview, right? But I can tell you personally, I've also reaped a lot of personal benefit from it. I've done the saving lives, I've done the prosecuting crimes, I've done the solving cases, but I've also reaped some personal benefits of it. And this is the message I try to convey. Like you can be unappreciated or underappreciated by the public and by the government, and you can still get something out of it. You just have to make sure that you focus on yourself and your own happiness, and always doing things for the right reasons, right? Don't let yourself fall into corruption. Don't let yourself turn the negativity coming your way back on anybody else. Don't treat people badly. I don't know if I mentioned this. It feels familiar that I mentioned it in one of our earlier podcasts, but one of the sergeants that I had, he retired as a captain, but he was my sergeant when he said this, and he was a friend of ours, Jim Guesswicki.
Yep.
Jim said to me one time when I was a brand new patrolman, he said, listen, no matter what happens out on the street, there's nothing I ever want to hear you call anyone out there except sir, ma'am, or the defendant. There's never any reason to call anybody else anything else on the street ever. Right? And the message he was trying to convey was treat everyone with respect, and respect is what you'll get back. Right? And the cops that we see on the news that are arrested, that are turned into these national symbols of shame, a lot of them acted in ways that weren't respectful. Right? And that's what happens. And I keep veering off track here, but I'm going to get back to this. So the message I sent to the platoon was...
We want happy.
The message I sent to the platoon was there are a lot of reasons that you can be happy and that you can reap some benefit from this career. And some of the things I sent them, and I said that I have learned things, and I've seen things, and I've traveled a lot of places. And I've done a lot that I would not have otherwise done in any other career. I've been all over this country because of my career in the police department and my involvement with our labor union. I've traveled all over the country for the past 25 years, and I've done some really cool things. Like I went to a course one time in New Mexico, out by the Trinity bomb site at New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology. Yeah. I went to a 4-day course where our final day, our final exam was we created a 500-pound ANFO bomb out of a Plymouth Fury. That's pretty badass, right? Like, that's fun stuff.
That's actually, especially with think of the irony, Plymouth Fury.
Yeah, I mean,
and then you blew the crap out of it.
Really fun
That's amazing.
Stuff. So I've done things and I've seen things that I wouldn't have otherwise seen if I was working at Citibank or if I was working at Chemours or, you know, and on top of the things I've done and the places I've gone and seen, I've made friends that have become my family, right? We all are in this together. We spend our holidays together. We spend our meals together. We wake up early in the morning and we're the first faces one another see in the morning.
Right.
We spend 11 hours a day, 5 days a week together. So you build these relationships with this larger group that becomes part of your extended family. And that's not really something you see as an attorney or as a chemical engineer or as a bank executive. You don't really see that.
Well, you don't see it much as a psychologist or a social worker. You don't see that type of bonding. You know, there's not many professions out there that have that level of bonding.
Right.
Let's be honest about that.
So I mean, the positive things about this are the relationships that we build, the lifelong friendships that we build. And to piggyback off that, just a couple weeks ago, last week, we had our FOP's retiree Christmas dinner. We had our annual retirees Christmas dinner. These are men and women, some of whom have been retired since I've been active. Like, they've been retired for my whole career. And they're still coming to the retiree dinner, right. And they're getting together as brothers and sisters, and they're talking about their careers and about their lives as though it happened yesterday.
Wasn't for the chicken.
It wasn't for the chicken. It was for the camaraderie. It was for that connection. So we make these lifelong connections with people. And there are a dozen reasons that people can say that they're disenchanted about their careers or that this is bothering them or that they don't feel supported by that. But at the end of the day, the benefits of it really do like far outweigh anything detrimental. And sure. I can't complain. And the person that brought up the topic for us was saying, you know, was talking about how some people are given opportunities and some people aren't. And I try to drive home, like, for all of my 25 years, I've been in a uniform, working shift work and working holidays. So I'm not coming from a position of privilege. I'm not coming from one of these careers that you see on, you know, you watch the cop shows and you see this guy that's he's tapped for detectives or he's tapped for the vice squad at year 2 and then never looks back and he's like straight up the ladder and then, you know, he becomes a captain and a deputy inspector and an inspector and he's just like on this rocket ship. Those are the golden boys and we all know them. We've all met them.
Right.
But I wanted them to understand from me, as a member of their leadership, I just wanted them to understand that I'm not coming from that position. Yeah, I may hold the rank, but I've never really been one of those taken care of guys, right? And I'm still really pleased with the things I've done and the things I've seen. Like I'm still right there with them, wearing my uniform, working the shift work with them day in and day out. Like I'm doing what they're doing. And I'm still not displeased with it. Like I've still done and seen greatness.
Well, let's be honest about your career in and of itself, is that you also started several programs that are not just helping one or two officers. You're helping a ton of officers. I mean, obviously getting into critical incident stress management, getting into crisis intervention, you know, things that you've done that affect everybody in a very positive way. So, you know, kudos to you for that. But you also have to think about that. That is a huge positive for most people. I mean, we've had young officers look you dead in the eye and say, if it wasn't for you, I don't know where I'd be. I mean, that's powerful.
And you know what? I see that as another benefit to me. Like it might be partly a selfish motivation for me to see. I like to see people who have had that epiphany, who have said things were really bad, and I managed to turn it around. And I eat up Like, I really appreciate the sentiment when they thank me for doing something that I think I owe them the responsibility of doing. Like, I feel like I owe it back to this career. I owe it back to this profession. So I feel like it's something I owe back, and it humbles me when I hear the thanks and when I hear the gratitude from people.
So with that, do you have a story or a memory? And I know it's tough over a 25-year career. It's probably damn near difficult to think of one. But if you could think back over the years, what was one of the most charitable times that you saw that police came together, your platoon came together? What was some of the more charitable times, or something that was very charitable?
So for about the middle third of my career, I was assigned to the community policing unit back before that. It existed in Wilmington for about 10 years during my career. It came in, we had a good time at it, and then we transitioned to other things. It's no longer a dedicated team. Mm-hmm. Right now, community policing is the philosophy of the police department rather than being confined to 25 cops. But at this time, there were 25 or 30 of us assigned to a community policing unit where several officers were assigned to each neighborhood. And that was their neighborhood all the time. They're in the same neighborhood. They're out walking, riding bikes, making connections. So we got to know the families. We got to know the people and the citizens and the residents. And we made some good contacts, and we made some good connections between the police and the neighborhoods at that time. And during my time with the community policing unit, every year we would, as a team, get together and sponsor several families in our neighborhood. Like the 3 officers assigned to this neighborhood would identify a few families, and we would sponsor them. And we would find what their needs were for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we would help to provide meals. We would help to provide some gifts for the kids, make sure they weren't going to get shut out on Christmas Day. And that didn't grow out of anything that the police department told us to do or that the politicians told us to do. The officers that were in that unit got together and said, we're community policing. We are part of these communities. We spend more time in these communities than we do in our own homes most often. So we're going to get together and find out who has the needs in our area, and we're going to try to do something for them. Again, because we owe it to them, right? They're the citizens of the city are the people that hold the city together. We're there to kind of help them, right? So that, to me, that period of time in the community policing unit was what I saw as the most charitable. And it wasn't just at the holidays. If somebody identified a need in their neighborhood at some point during the year, that a family was struggling or that somebody needed help, we would get together and help them.
Right.
And these are the kinds of things, and we never advertised it, we never publicized it, we never invited the news to come ride with us, mostly because they turned down all our positive stories. But we never invited them to come along on these operations. We did these operations quietly. We provided for these families, and then we went home to our families.
But you know, and again, we've talked about it many times about you're not called during the best of times. You're called during the worst of times. And so now you're basically saying, like, look, we've seen you in your worst in the community, and we want to help you out, which I think is absolutely amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Outside. Now, the other thing is, and I know this is an odd one, but I figure people like to hear it. There's always those certain calls you get. You know, we look at the mum and pop-up calls, right? You know, that little old lady that really just kind of lonely, and she calls the officer. You know, or calls 911 and says, "Oh, I heard a burglar," or something like that.
Right.
What? Any stories of that? Did you have any little mum or pop-up stories like that?
So there was a lady a few years ago that was kind of entering in the beginning stages of dementia. And so I don't think she realized how often she called the police, but she would call and there would be something missing from her home.
Okay.
She was convinced that her daughter was coming to her house stealing things, or that people were moving things around her house, or that people were there that weren't there.
Did she ever gift wrap her cat?
She never gift wrapped her cat or her Jell-O mold. So none of that. She never said the Pledge of Allegiance in place of the grace. But she was convinced, and this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Okay.
And we kept going out there. We were writing reports, but after about the second or third report, it started to occur to us, this probably isn't so. She would tell us who took it and direct us to their house. And we would go to their house, and they'd be like, I haven't been around the corner in in months.
Right.
Or she started accusing her daughter and her grandchildren, and so it got to the point where, we kept going over there and going through the motions with her. Yeah, we know somebody's taken something, somebody broke it. We would look around the house. We would check the locks on the windows. The windows that she swore they were coming in through were nailed closed.
Oh.
We're like, honey, they're not coming in through the windows, but we'll check.
Right.
We'll take a little paintbrush, pretend we're fingerprinting or whatever. So you almost hate to play along with it, but she just needed that contact. She needed the reassurance, and she came out. And it got to the point where eventually she decompensated so badly that the officer that kept handling the reports ended up referring her to the Office of Elder Care to get her the help that she needed, not because we didn't want her to call us anymore, but because we were concerned about her at that point for her safety.
But that's the positive functioning of policing, right? Policing isn't just about locking people up. Policing is about taking care of people. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's truthfully about taking care of people.
I mean, you go back to the crisis intervention team. Well, we have now about 70 or 71 officers who are trained in this crisis intervention model, and a handful of them are trained specifically for veterans, right? Yep. And more often, and over the years, I started in the mid-90s, for heaven's sake, and arrest used to be the solution for everything. Right? This person's physically sick, arrest them. This person's mentally sick, arrest them. This person is dementia, is confused, is lost, let's arrest them, right? And then we started getting into the crisis intervention team model. Yeah. It finally reached the shores of Delaware in 2013 or 14. And we've trained hundreds statewide, but we've got about 70 locally.
Right.
And so I'm starting to see, and I'm proud of the officers for doing this, I'm starting to see more and more often they either know what the resources are and they're contacting resources and sitting with people, or they're calling me and saying, hey, this is what I've got. What resources do we have?
Right.
And so it's good that I'm starting to see the police officers now kind of opt away from arrest and start kind of pushing people towards assistance instead.
Right.
Looking for resources, whether they're fiscal resources, mental health resources, physical health, housing, food instability, but they're calling me, or they're calling one another, or they're calling the resources that we've given them, and they're finding solutions other than handcuffs. And I think that's probably what we should have been doing all along. And I'm proud that it's catching on, and I'm proud of the officers that I work with that are changing the mindset. The younger officers are really latching on to this. It took a little more effort to sell the old veterans, but the police department's getting really young now.
Oh, yeah.
And the younger the officers get, the younger the police department gets, the more they latch onto this concept of assistance over arrest. And it makes me proud to see that transition happening. Like, we're trying to get the physically ill and the mentally ill, the emotionally disturbed out of the prisons and into the treatments, or leave them in the community and just get them the help they need sitting at home.
Again, exceptionally positive functioning of the police. And again, I think a lot of people, and tell me if I'm wrong with this, a lot of people don't understand it. I will. I'll call you out on this. A lot of people don't understand that. I think it's, in certain areas of the world, certain people, certain things, whatever it is, the function of the police are to arrest and incarcerate, harass, things like that. But in all truth, it's to police the community, make sure people are okay.
There are about 6 companies that control everything you know. Everything you see, everything you read, everything you hear. There are about 6 or 7 companies that control the flow of that information.
Them and the Illuminati.
And the things that aren't headlines, the things that aren't newsworthy, if it bleeds, it leads, right? They ignore. So they don't see the officers because it never makes headlines. They don't see the officers making phone calls about resources. They don't see the officers giving rides to mental health facilities. They don't see the officers dropping off toys and turkeys and chickens and food. Like, just this past week, the Trauma Survivors Foundation donated dozens and dozens of toys to the Delaware Association of Latino Law Enforcement for their annual Christmas toy drive. It doesn't make the news because that's not negative enough to sell papers.
Yeah.
Do they still sell papers?
I think they do. They're not it's few and far between.
It's not negative enough to drive clicks. How about that?
But, if you go to the Facebook page, you go to Instagram, whatever, you could see it. And one of our friends, and we'll talk about that before we end the section, a good friend of ours, Joran Merced, Detective Merced with the can we say it? I guess we can say it. The Wilmington Police Department. Joran is the one that he is part of the Delaware Latino Law Enforcement Association. And he started this toy drive, I guess, about 5 years ago.
Maybe more than that.
Maybe
yeah.
more. And we've been a part of it for several years. And every year, we try to help and give more and more people. The Trauma Survivors Foundation try to give more and more toys. The thing is that he starts with maybe like 4 or 5 families that need a nice Christmas. And then the next year was 10 families. The next year is 20. I think he's up to 40 to 50 families.
So his boss has at the police department has a conference room that's probably 30 feet long.
Right.
And the last time I saw him do a toy drive, they were storing the toys in this conference room so they could get the sorting done for the families.
Right.
And it filled this conference room. It filled a 30-foot conference room with toys. So he's doing great things. And he's not doing great things to get press. And he's not doing great things so that people know about it. He's doing great things because the police officers that I work with care about people more than those 7 media companies would ever have you believe.
Right.
The police officers I work with care about people and care about the community and the world, and they're doing good things.
And in that vein, what we did through a series of 27, 28 memes at 3 o'clock in the morning, we developed the Public Safety Awards. And Jordan was JoJo. He was one of the recipients right before the lockdown, right before everything was at our last Black Tie and Sneakers event. And we gave him that honor of saying, look, you are one of our heroes. You are one of these guys that are doing such good in the community as an officer. And people should know this.
You know what's the best kind of hero? The unsung hero.
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy that does it anonymously.
And then when we have to talk about our favorite subjects, me and you. No. But the reality is that, look, if you have that, and it's not just us. There's several other programs that go out there that honor officers, honor first responders that do it. But ours was purely that. Was like, we're going to honor you because of how cool you are and how good, how positive you've been for this community. And people don't see that.
And it was peer driven.
Yeah.
And it was for things other than you made a great arrest.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? It was for genuine reasons. And it was all the nominations were peer driven. All the nominations came from their friends or their coworkers. So it was really about the guys that are out there doing the Lord's work and not being recognized for it. It was a way for us to lift them up a little bit and tell them, look, we see you. We see what you're doing. Thank you.
It's all about respect. And I think the ones that we've honored so far, unbelievable. You can respect them and they respect you.
I've got some ideas about this year's Personal Hero Award. So
there you go. All right. Thank you. That was awesome. That was positive. All right. So this is The Cop and the Shrink. Visit us, copandtheshrink.com. We'll be back. Let's talk about the positive psychology movement.
The Division of Wellness Services of the National Fraternal Order of Police is committed to leading the efforts to ensure the well-being of law enforcement officers. The FOP intends to no longer react to issues of critical stress affecting its members, but instead take a pre-act approach that is driven by trained peer support, research, empowerment of officers, awareness and stigma reduction, connections to service, and ongoing training and development. Information about the Wellness Division, resources, and publications can be found at fop.net/officer wellness. Donations to the National FOP in support of their Division of Wellness Services and other programs can be made online at nfop.firstresponderprocessing.com.
And we're back at The Cop and the Shrink. Follow us, thecopandtheshrink.com. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok, which is pretty fun.
God help us.
God help us all. OnlyFans is next.
It is not.
Maybe not. Maybe not. You don't want to see that. But also make sure you go to our website. Again, like I said, follow us on thecopandtheshrink.com, but go to our website. Check out the merch there. We have some new cool T-shirt ideas. We have some sweatshirts. We have masks. We have hoodies. We have some really cool stuff. Also, check us out a little bit more. Go a little deeper. Dig deep. Pivot. No, I can't say that. We've used pivot too much the past 22 months. So go a little deeper. We got a couple of things of our merch here. We have our Three Boys brand from Wagon House Winery. We have the Captain's Punch. We also have Survivor's IPA from Big Oyster, which I just heard from Big Oyster Brewery. We're going to change the formula a little bit.
Okay.
We might be making a hazy IPA.
I like it.
I like it. I like it a lot. So check it out. And go to drinksurvivors.com. Let's get caffeinated, babies, because we got a ton of stuff. And if you're looking for a last-minute Christmas item, I mean last minute, the shipping has been amazing. So go to drinksurvivors.com, get yourselves some coffee, some K-cup things and whatever. But also with Wagon House Winery and the Three Boys brand. They ship anywhere except for obviously Delaware, but they ship to PA, most states. They get it out to you pretty quickly, but you can get a bottle of not only the Captain's Punch, but some of their amazing wines that come out of New Jersey.
I'll tell you what, if you're a fan of Delaware and you want some of the Survivor's IPA or the Captain's Punch, you send us a message. Send us a message through the podcast. Send us a message through the website. I know somebody close by, close to the state line in PA. We'll have your order shipped there. I'll deliver it.
Hey, there you go. Will you wear?
I will wear. I will wear.
You got
the Santa
my God.
hoodie.
For those just listening, this sweatshirt that he has on is epic. It is Kris Kringle-ish. The other thing is, and I'll throw this out because we have not only our little partner, we have, and again, Jim Wyatt out there. Make sure you go to Great Cigars. It's Great Cigar Reviews, greatcigarreviews.com. Jim out there is amazing. He's got merch out there. I'll put this up for the folks looking at the YouTubes on it. It's some really great stuff. We got T-shirts. We got different stickers and so forth that he has. But Bellefonte Brewery up on Marsh Road in Wilmington, Delaware, for those folks that do want to get the Captain's Punch, they have bottles there. You can buy them, but also we will deliver directly to you in Delaware if that's what you want us to do. We may sing carols, but you know who doesn't sing carols?
You don't want to hear me sing.
Yeah, but you know who doesn't sing carols?
Who's that?
The Tiger King, because he hates carols.
He hates carols.
Oh God. We're making it positive for the holidays.
So we talked a half hour about one of my favorite topics, which are the good things that I see police officers doing that
Right.
don't get recognized, that don't get, that don't get praised the way they should. But it gets drowned out, right, by the message in the media. Well, let's talk about your favorite topic now.
Me?
Dennis Carradine.
We said it. Mac Davis, right?
Because
so
just
hard
like
to be
police, right? Just like you said about the police, nobody calls us and says, "Come on over. I want to tell you about the great day I'm having," and just say hi and here's a Pepsi. Nobody calls us on the best day. We always hear from someone on for them what is probably the worst day they've had, or at least the worst day they've had this year. Hopefully not the worst day they've had so far.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's similar in the clinical mental health field. I imagine nobody's calling you and saying, "Hey, I need to make an appointment and tell you how damn happy I am," right? So I mean,
we'd wonder if they were on drugs if they did that.
So let's get a little bit into the rewards and the positive aspects of dealing with people on your side of what is seeing someone during their hardest times.
So, and I'm going to go with your stance with it. It's again, when you get into this field, very simple. You get into the right reasons. I think the majority get into the right reason. There's always going to be rogue people. There's always going to be people that get into it for the absolute wrong reasons.
There's never been a social worker who got into social work because of the money. Can we admit that?
Oh God, absolutely not. We are the lowest paid of the medical professionals. I mean, you really have to look at it for what we do versus what we are compensated. If from psychiatrist all the way down to the social worker, anywhere in between, we're the lowest compensated. So you get into it for other reasons, and I think, like I said, I think most of us get into reasons because you want to affect change on people. For me, when, and just to give my background, when I got into college, when I went in, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to help kids, right? So I got in, did the pre-med track and all, pre-med, pre-law, same thing, doesn't matter, got in as pre-med, amassed all of these credits in pre-med, right? It was cool. I had biology, Chem 1, Chem 2, inorganic chem, organic chem, what's the chem, who's on the chem. I got all this stuff, right? And I met these two amazing psychologists. If there was ever cool psychologists, I don't know if we're at that level of cool. I don't know there's a TikTok group out there that says, cool psychologists on TikTok. That probably is not going to happen. It clearly won't happen on OnlyFans. But so I met these two, right? Dr. Pat Krantz, Dr. Christina Fieser, and changed my complete outlook of psychology in and of itself. I mean, really changed it as a science, as a pure science and a way to affect change, right? Prior to that, growing up, and especially, a strict Italian Catholic home and so forth, you don't talk to people. You talk to the priest, you talk to your parents, you talk to your buddies on the street corner, things like that. You use the F-bomb in creative manners. I mean, you do all that stuff, but you really don't go and talk to a shrink.
No, if the confessional can't fix it, it can't be fixed.
If I can't do 10 Hail Marys, then it doesn't matter, right? So I didn't have the greatest connotation of mental health, but yet these two psychologists, these two excellent professors came in and changed my thinking of it, and I had not looked back since. And I continued to find these people throughout my education, that I found these mentors, that these people were there saying, like, look, this is how you can affect change. So now when we, snapshot 300 years later, my 25-year career, when we snapshot later to it, I look back and I think the simplest thing that helped was that somebody said, you could do this and it works. Is that you can actually sit down with somebody, talk to them about their problems, throw out some techniques, throw out some, cognitive corrective actions, and they get better. And so in that realm, when it started with psychology, I then got introduced to the world of trauma psychology, got introduced to helping first responders, being a volunteer firefighter and an EMT and all that. I was like, well, how can I do this? And then all of a sudden, this opened up a whole new world of how you start working with first responders. It was a win-win situation, with the exception that first responders were not 100% open to mental health people.
When we did our focus group, what did I tell you was the one thing that you and all the other clinicians need to know about first responders? Remember what I told you was the number one factor? We will lie to you. We will lie to you. But let's get back to that for a minute. Not that we will lie to you, but the part about how you got involved, right? When I started getting involved with officer wellness and with stress management, police mental health, back in 2000, 2001, when I started getting involved with that, in a lot of police departments, it was still unheard of. It was just like you said in the Italian Catholic family, like we don't need that. It's a sign of weakness. We're not going to admit that we're struggling. We're going to swallow our problems and we're going to wash it down with some bourbon, and that's going to be that, right? It was unheard of, and it was a struggle. My dear friend Don Bluestein and I struggled to bring police mental health into the light so that people could see the importance of it and the effectiveness of it. And so it was a struggle for us to get cops to buy into the concept of just general wellness and general mental health, and admitting when they were having the stress reaction, admitting when they needed to have a group or a one-on-one or a referral or whatever it was that would help them recover. For you, in the community of clinical social workers and clinical counselors and psychologists, in that world of clinicians, how was it for you to get involved in, you're saying, I'm going to go work with cops now?
Have you ever seen a group of piranha attack an otter? At first look, it was tough because when I got involved in this, it was new. I mean, it was absolutely new. And I was coming down from Temple University, the Philadelphia Fire Department, and I was coming down into Wilmington with a crisis team that literally was 6 months old. A group of firefighters at the time that said we needed this program, and it was critical incident stress management or stress debriefing at the time, CISD. We need this crew, we need this team to start working only with the firefighters. And we got down here and everybody went, F you. And it was like, what do you mean? And they went, no, we're not going to talk to you. And this is just the firefighters that started. And it was professional firefighters. So these were paid firefighters that started that program. And then ultimately they said, well, I forget the first run, and God forgive me. There's been multiple runs after that. But there was this one horrific run. And then they called in this team of a couple of guys, me as this like 22-year-old kid that came down to help them out. And I saw it change. I saw the attitude towards us change. They were like, wait, you're just down here to make sure we're okay? And wait, we're talking to you and we feel better? And it was this wild concept that, yeah, if you talk about your problems versus go to the bar and drink your face off, you actually get a little bit better. And that was the first time that I saw this in action here in Delaware. We'd done a few in Philly that I saw the same kind of reaction, but in Delaware was like, this was a brand new concept.
Well, your first big run was like, pardon the cliche, but your first run was kind of a baptism by fire, right? You were in the one Meridian Plaza.
I was a junior senior, and we had just started it up there. And my mentor, who was introduced to me by one of my other mentors, had basically said, "You're my boy," and it was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Dude, I what?" So we got up there with that. You had firefighters that had perished, God bless them, and here we are doing this, and people were responding. So the funny part here is that and if anybody knows, and I think this is culture in most smaller communities, and especially smaller first responder communities. So because it worked that one time here in Delaware, that one time it worked, right? The police were like, why don't we have it? And then all of a sudden the volunteer service started saying, well, what about us guys? And then eventually, here's the paramedics and EMS and so forth. And I have been on this wild ride with it. And so I get the most, when you were saying, when something positive happens and you feel it, when somebody calls you and acknowledges you, and this is not anything more than what it is. And I'll say this because this isn't about narcissism, but it's not about anything else. But I get this absolute pleasure and honor for an officer to call me. I get this unreal feeling that, holy shit, this guy's calling me or this gal's calling me because they know I could help them. And not in a narcissistic way. I get it in this very honored. I am very humbled by that. I am very, it just blows me away. It's almost feeling self-separated. Like little Dennis comes out of my head and goes, he really did call you. And it's like, hey, he did. This is cool,
So one of my favorite things about the whole process is that you and I together have been in situations where you can actually physically see the process work. Like you can see it work. I'm not gonna talk about what incident. I'm not gonna talk about the profession. I don't want to call her. I love her to death. She is a dear friend of ours.
Yep.
She's family with one of my favorite officers. But we went to an incident one time where we were debriefing a huge group, and this one public safety professional, that's as deep as I'm going to get. I'm not trying to identify anybody, right? Yeah. But this one public safety professional, when we got to the event, she was in her chair on the far end of the room from me. I've told you this story a dozen times.
Oh, yeah.
She was wrapped up in a ball. She was sitting on the chair as small as she could get, with her knees hugged up to her chest and just wrapped up and sitting like as tense as she could be. And as they talked through the debriefing, as they talked through the help that you and the other clinicians brought, that our police volunteers brought to this event, as we talked through it and everybody got a chance to decompress and everyone started to work through the process, you could watch her. We physically watched her over the course of 2.5 hours physically unwind, right? Where her legs went down, her arms went back. She took a more relaxed posture, and we could actually see the process work. And I think that's the best thing. That's the best feeling. Like you were just saying, the best feeling is to see that someone has been helped by this.
Well, and it was funny. I was talking to one of our directors earlier, Anthony, from the Trauma Survivors Foundation, and I told him it takes me forever to trust and respect somebody. Just it really does.
And it takes about 4 minutes
to lose everything.
Flush all of that.
Yeah, it's literally seconds where you lose trust. But when I get And we'll just use an officer for this case because it's any first responder. It doesn't matter to me. But I get that officer that calls me 3 o'clock in the morning or whenever it is, that's beaten up, bruised, that's just broken, and calls, and they never, and you know this, which is funny, they never call and say, hey, Doc, I got a problem, right? It's always they call, hey, Doc, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm staring at the wall right now. It's 3 a.m.
You need coffee?
Yeah. That's always would you like a coffee? And I'm like, yeah, we're probably going to need one after this talk. And I have, and ostensibly I have for the past 25 years dropped everything. And because that was my duty. Is that right? I mean, for whatever it is.
I mean, we've developed a sense of responsibility to these communities. Right. I remember one time you're talking about the spur of the moment call. I remember I called you from a scene and said, "Hey, Doc, where are you? And what are you doing?" And you said, "I'm driving up Lincoln Street right now." I said, "Great, turn right."
Yeah. I literally was a block and a half away from the scene. I was going to call you and go, "Why the hell are all the cop cars here?" But again, I think it's that I get the absolute privilege to work with these men and women. I get that privilege. And I've always, anytime I've had an intern, anytime I've given a speech, a talk, or whatever it is, I hope my exuberance within it shows. It's like, look, this is hard work, but you get a reward after the end of it because you know that you have affected change on somebody that is coming in contact with the general public. And not to rat out any mental health person out there, not to say anything, but the majority of mental health people are in their office and maybe 8 to 10 hours a day, and I think they lose touch with a lot of the reality of the world. They really do, because you're put behind the walls of an office and you're working off of your theory, whether it's cognitive behavioral, cognitive, gestalt, whatever it is. You're working off of a theory and you're working with people to help them, which is noble, and there's a nobility within the science to it. But when you're out there and you are affecting change on people, and I would say this to anybody in mental health that's listening, truly affecting change. You are seeing this within a matter of seconds. You are telling somebody that even if it's not okay, it's going to be okay, and we're going to figure it out, because this moment really, really sucks, but maybe 10 moments from now, it's going to be much, much better. And then their shoulders go down, their body language changes. It's addicting. It's addicting in a very good way, because that means you want to help that next person, and you want to help that next person, but you do it humbly. You do it from a stance, and I could say it from me, because that's how I try. You could tell me if I'm you narcissistic ass, you've been doing it all wrong. But I think when I go in to help them, I just say, look, trust me, and I know it's hard to do that, and I know it's difficult to do that, but I'm not going to hurt you, and I am not going to do anything that's going to make you more damaged.
But that's that first hurdle. That trust hurdle is the first.
Oh yeah. Big
hurdle, because as a profession, historically, we don't break down that barrier. Right, we don't throw trust to the strangers. First or second episode, we described the two kinds of people in the world, did we not?
We
did. Two kinds of people in the world, right? There's cops and assholes.
Yes.
We don't let the assholes through our barrier.
Right.
And so breaking down that trust barrier is the first big hurdle. And I think we've talked about why our program works, right? Why our partnership works. I come with you to the clinicians and to the professionals, and you bring me in and say, trust him. Like, I'm lending him my credibility. Trust him. Right. He's with me. He knows what he's doing. And I come to the cops and I say, listen, he's with me. You all trust me. Right. He's not going to do you any harm. Trust him as well. So we kind of, our program has worked so well because we lend each other the credibility in our own circle of our own circle of trust. Right. So,
do you like this fucker? But and to that point, you have to kind of look at what that means in the world of psychology. So everybody in psychology understands credos and ethos, right? Ethos being our ethical responsibility, credos meaning our credible are a credible presence with anyone. And when we're working just and you say your regular patients, your everyday folks, and when you're working with them, you have to show an ethical responsibility and a credibility that says, look, I have to uphold your confidentiality, I have to hold your trust, I have to do everything appropriately for you to hopefully affect some change. With first responders, you basically have to say that I am holding you to this level of trust that maybe other people can't, that people don't understand. If I were to release any of your information in any way, not only you could lose a career, but you could die. And truthfully looking at that about how much this means. And then when you get that trust and you get that phone call at 3:00 in the morning, when I say humbling, it is absolutely humbling. And I've had a 25-year career of being humbled, which I want another 25 years. Who knows? No, maybe not.
I do not want another 25 years. We talked a little bit before the show. One of my favorite things about being in the police department is the pension that comes at the end of it.
Pension. We get, but I'm also in a career that if I didn't like it anymore, I wouldn't be doing it, right? I said this before. I would literally be on Deadliest Catch, crab fishing in some damn place in Alaska.
You're told to be a greenhorn.
I want to.
And you got a bad wheel.
I got a bad, broke both ankles, but in all truth, I would do that. I'd probably be the guy that gets bit in the ass by the shark on the main deck or whatever of this boat. I don't even know what the hell's on a boat. There's a stern, there's a mast, a wheel. I don't know. Whatever the hell's on this boat. There's a poop deck.
It's not what you think.
But if I didn't love this, if I didn't love psychology, if I didn't love how to change people, I wouldn't be doing it. And I've done it for 25 plus years and have really no sight in not doing it anymore. And also to understand this, and I did say, I came out and said we're the least compensated and what have you, but our program, the Critical Incident Stress Management Program, CIRS, ours, the Critical Incident Critical Incident Response Strategies.
I knew you could do it.
I got it out there. CIRS, we've done it for free. We've done it completely for free for years, basically to say, look, we know this works. We want to help. We want to be there for you. Hell, the foundation, the Trauma Survivors Foundation, started out at the fact that we wanted to raise money to make sure people had mental health services, simply because we know that this stuff works. God, every episode, you get me riled up.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, you people. What is that? Happy holidays, you filthy animals.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.
And if anybody could put in the comment section, here you go. Here's something. I will personally send you some merch. I will send you something from the Cop and the Shrink. If you could put into any of the comments underneath of our site on Facebook, what were Kevin's on Home Alone? What were some of the movies he was watching? Not the one that he was actually watching on television, but he has a stack of movies. I want you to put down the names of the movies on that movie. If anybody can get all of them, I'm going to send you a shirt.
All right.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. That's a good talk. I'll let you pull us out.
Pull us out. Okay. So thanks for listening so far. And we'll be back with the next segment. We're going to talk about families. We're going to talk about families and friends and how we all interact and spend the holidays. We're going to try to avoid the worst of times. We're going to talk about the best of times.
And the good of times. We're here for the great times. You have seen their faces and read their stories. Our hospital heroes and first responders are remarkable. Their strength is inspiring as they continue to work around the clock in the fight against COVID-19. Throughout the pandemic, they have had limited downtime and limited access to prepared meals. Our hospital heroes are working in extremely stressful environments, literally placing their own safety at risk to help the sick and dying. Our mission is to show these frontline workers that we, the community they are caring for, supports and cares for them through the simple act of providing them with a prepared meal to help sustain them through the day. To complete this mission, we are partnering with local restaurants to deliver quality food directly to hospitals, urgent cares, testing centers, treatment centers, nursing facilities, and first responder stations. We have delivered nearly 25,000 meals to over 60 locations in Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland. We have been honored to help these amazing men and women. The meals we bring are met with such gratitude. In those moments, as the meals are set up, we see their gratitude in the form of tears and laughter. A simple meal can provide hope in the face of this terrifying disease. The Trauma Survivors Foundation's Hospital Heroes Food Drive has the incredible privilege of coming into the worlds of our hospital heroes and first responders at the most difficult time in their lives. For a $6 meal donation, you can help a hospital hero and a struggling restaurant stay focused and positive through the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still need your help to see our hospital heroes through this fight. Our heroes are why we do what we do, but you are the how. Your donation helps us provide food and hope to our frontline heroes. Your donation makes hope stronger than fear. Text Hospital Heroes to 44321 to donate a meal to a hero. Please visit us at hospitalheroesfooddrive.org to learn more about our mission. And welcome back to The Cop and the Shrink. Remember to go to thecopandtheshrink.com. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and wherever you have your cop and shrink needs. Also, check out our merchandise and make sure you check out all the other websites that we've talked about previously. The other one to check out, and I'm going to put this one out here because I just got back this weekend from Boston. We were up in the Boston area visiting family. But go to, if you're out in the Boston area, it's only about 20 minutes outside of Boston. It's called Waltham, Massachusetts. Our buddy Rick Peasy up there owns Peasy Farm. You want to go check out Rick. And why I say this, because if you want to talk about charitable, if you want to talk about somebody that does something for the community and especially for policing, Rick is your guy. I cannot, and we're talking about the current topics now. We're going to get into it, but Rick is that guy that I have not known him to not give a meal, to not give 10,000 meals to first responders, whether they're police, whether they're firefighters. It didn't matter. Rick is the guy. He's a very good friend, awesome person. But I want to tell you, one of the most charitable people that I know in this profession. And I think there's a ton of people like Rick. I think there's a ton of people that are out there in this community and just something that would say, like, look, we want to respect you. We want to do something for you. And these folks in that community are doing things for them and doing things for police and so forth.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of people who go out of their way to do kind things and to do charitable things for first responders, and it's always so appreciated. Yeah.
So Rick, there it is, Peasy Farm. Give it. He ships worldwide too. Very similar to the Wagon House Winery to get the Captain's Pledge.
Is it beets?
Is it beets? Rick, it's funny when we were up there. He has, and everybody has these cider donuts, right? You find these cider donuts at all these different stands and so forth. Rick has cider and eggnog donuts.
No kidding.
Stupid good. And I'm not making this the Rick Peasy show. That's not what it is. But I'm just saying there's folks out there.
I'm writing this down.
Write this down. We'll get it shipped out to you, Rick. If you're listening, ship it to HB Bozeman. You got it. The other one, but I'll also throw this out there because this is something that just happened with Delaware Today magazine. So you don't know this. I'm putting this out here.
I don't know this.
So I'm putting it out here. Another really cool thing. We've been doing the Hospital Heroes Food Drive now since the beginning of COVID. So right at the lockdown, we started the Hospital Heroes Food Drive. We are now at 30,000 meals that we have delivered to hospital workers, to first responders, you name it. So I get this phone call from Monica from Delaware Today magazine. And Monica says, hey, I got your name and number for one of our supporters, one of our great friends, Vincenza. She was Miss Delaware. She's on Good Morning Wilmington. She owns V&M Bistro. You name it, this woman does everything, right? She says, I got your name and number from Vincenza. We want to give you a check from Delaware Today magazine that we raised money so that you can continue to do the Hospital Heroes food drive.
Fantastic.
The check is for $6,300. Wow. So,
right.
7 pizzas, I think it buys,
7
right?
pizzas.
7 pizzas. No, I literally, that's again another thing where now a group, a magazine, a very well-published magazine is saying we want to help first responders. And I see that a lot. Now, the other side of it that I see, and you were going to speak a little bit more to it because we've already started speaking about our man JoJo, the charitable aspect of first responders, the charitable aspect of policing. What do we got out there? What are people outside of what we've already talked about? What are they doing? And why, I guess, is the bigger question.
So I got a little bit into it when I talked about our community policing unit all those years ago. And that kind of grew out of our sense of responsibility for the neighborhoods we were assigned to. But since that has gone away, since the community policing unit has gone away, now we have police officers who are out in the communities as just part of their patrol assignment, right? Their chief's mission is to keep the same faces in the same districts all the time, to foster that sense of community, to foster that sense of ownership, as it were, and responsibility for a given neighborhood. So the police officers get to know people, get to know their problems, get to know their personalities. They can tell you when something's out of place. So all the police officers are assigned to a neighborhood anyway for the long term.
Right.
So it's like the community policing concept gone macro.
Right.
Now everybody's doing what 20 of us used to do.
Right.
But what has grown out of that organically now is that we have some of the police officers. Again, it's the ones on the younger end of the spectrum,
right.
or some are not younger but are newer and newer to the profession.
They don't have
organically
rips
has
in their
grown
uniforms
out of their sense of community with these
right.
neighborhoods. They have taken it upon themselves, not as part of their assignment, not as something that's expected of them, just something that has grown from their hearts. They've decided they're going to go out into the communities and do similar things. So right now we have one of the officers is doing a clothing and toy drive, a coat drive and clothing drive. So some of the other officers had arranged for assembling turkey dinners and Thanksgiving Day meals at Thanksgiving.
Amazing.
And now they've transitioned into Christmas. They're doing a little Christmas drive for gifts and clothes and food there. So organically now, outside of any expectation, these police officers have developed such a connection to their communities that they've decided on their own time, on their own dollar, that they're going to go out and help people. And again, this is something they don't want publicized. They don't want their names out in the press. They don't do it for the praise and recognition. They're going out into the neighborhoods on their own, and they're just doing these things.
Right.
Out of a sense of what's right, out of a sense of responsibility for the neighborhoods that they police. And if these things were seen, and I know it's more widespread than here locally, I know that these guys are doing a great thing, and I know they're not the only police officers that are doing this.
Right.
And if it was known, if it was publicized by these 7 media conglomerates,
right.
what's going on nationwide by police officers who just have a genuine care and a genuine sense of community with the neighborhoods where they work, the whole perception would change and that pendulum would swing back again. But they would rather publish the bullshit. They would rather publish the negativity. But we're not having a negative. We're having
a happy,
we're having
positive.
A Christmas episode. We're not having a negative episode.
Well, and I think, going back, one of my highlights of Christmas, more than anything else, was standing on the front porch watching Santa Claus on the fire truck come through the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, and I think all the volunteer companies used to do that. They must have, because I lived in Mill Creek's local when I was growing up, and they used to clear out a hose bed and put a Santa Claus and a bunch of gifts up there, and they would ride through the neighborhoods.
Right. And I still think it was funny. My daughter being home from college, she was in the house, and she called and she laughed and said she said, "Oh my God, I thought there was a fire in the neighborhood." And I said, "What do you mean there was a fire in the neighborhood?" And she said there were lights, there were sirens. I saw the fire trucks, and I said, "So what happened?" She goes, "Well, Santa Claus was riding." And I went, "Okay." I said, "Honey, people do that." And she goes, I just haven't seen that in a long time." And so I think even the fire companies are getting back to doing something appropriate. They're doing something charitable and nice. And they're saying, all this negative bullshit that's out there, we're okay now. We want to do something. We want to help the community and show that, look, we've been helping the community since our inception. So don't view us as bad people, because we're really not bad people.
Right. I think the message is, this is where we've always been.
Yeah.
You've come up with a few horrendous events. I'm not going to take away from the horror of some of the events that have sparked this latest outrage for the past couple of years. But they've publicized and over-publicized and overhyped a couple of really horrendous events, and they've allowed that to overshadow that this is where first responders have really always been.
Right.
Delaware is mostly covered by the volunteer fire service. You know what this means? This means people are going out and risking their, people as young as 16, 17 years old are going out and risking their lives for people they don't know, not just for free, but for $100 a year, because that's what they pay in dues for the privilege of helping people for free. Right. So this is where we've always been. And I think that it gets overshadowed by the negativity. There's so much more goodness going on that's never known, and it gets overshadowed. And for Delaware, is the only state in the country where the state capital, is not covered by a paid fire service.
It's covered by the Dover Fire Department, which is completely 100% volunteer.
So we have these people who have such a sense of responsibility to their community that they're risking their lives for free. And what gets me is that most of the one paid fire department, most of the Wilmington Fire Department, most of those men and women are also volunteer firefighters on their days off. So they're getting paid to risk their lives a little bit, and then they're volunteering to risk their lives a lot more. Right.
But I also would hate to believe that this is everywhere. That if we had somebody call in from California, they'll have now, albeit he might not be in a full Santa Claus suit, but he might be in shorts or something.
Board shorts and a Santa hat.
But departments are doing that, and it's not just we've heard of Motorcycle Santa, we've heard of departments.
There's the Blue Knights Toy Run.
The Blue Knights Toy Run. We've had these folks that are in the first responder world that goes out there. One of the most popular toy drives, Toys for Tots, is a U.S. Marine Corps based program. This is the military doing this. So if the military has this exceedingly popular program, so why can't the first responders have it? And I think the first responders said, well, guess what? We've always had it. We've always done this stuff. We've always put out, a hat and people throw money in, and we buy that family that we adopt some food because we know how horrible their situation is. We know how bad it gets for them. Or they see a family that they might come in contact with, mother, father, or single parent or whatever it is, a few kids, and they know that those kids aren't going to have a Christmas, so they get together in a platoon or a group of them, adopt this family and get them some toys. They've been doing this forever. So outside of the bullshit, I think there's a lot of positive things that are going on. God, for all the things that you and I have been involved in, all the things that we've watched and seen have happened and just kind of happen out of the blue, it's almost like, look, we could sit here for hours and talk about this really cool thing and this really cool person, this really charitable thing and so forth. But we have to kind of take a blanket approach and say the first responder world is charitable by nature. It's you're not getting into it to get rich.
I'm telling you what, in Delaware, most of our first responder community, most of our first exposure to public safety was as volunteer something. Volunteer EMT, volunteer firefighter, something, police explorer. We got into this for free because we had a passion for it.
So you're not getting rich from it, number one, right? and that's it. You got into it voluntarily. You're doing these voluntarily. Very similar to teachers, you're using your own resources to help people. And I put that out to teachers because what is it? Each teacher every year, some statistic out there in the world.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, the teachers are spending a lot of money for things that should be provided to them rightfully. And they're underpaid as it is, and then they're laying out their own money to stock their classroom. It's ridiculous.
So when you have that type of situation, you have these first responders that do this, why doesn't it get publicity? That's hard to say. And I'm saying it and I'm not laughing about it, but it's coming across saying it should be publicized, but I know why it's not.
You know why it doesn't get publicity? They don't want it to.
No.
The guys, girls doing it don't want it to.
Right.
They don't care about the publicity. They care about the neighborhood.
Right.
So even if we offered, I think a lot of them would say, no, I don't want a story done on it. No, don't bring the news in, whatever. All right. So we've talked a lot about public safety. We've talked about clinical mental health. Let's spend the last couple minutes. We talked about family survival during the holiday season, right? We discussed a little bit earlier. How do we survive all of this intense, close contact with everyone in our family all at one time?
Well, I said it nicely. That you are a psychology major in college, don't come home and diagnose your family during Christmas dinner. And if you're in the police academy, don't believe that you're going to write tickets for everybody. That, number one, take that off the table. You know, when I taught psychology 15 years at Penn State as an adjunct, right? And I would teach Psych 101. What was the first thing that those students would say after we taught about diagnosing, talked about mental illness? They would come back from the break from Christmas and say, oh, you know, my aunt has bipolar, my cousin's schizophrenic, I think my uncle's a frauderist. And I went, he's a what? He's a frauderist? Did you look that diagnosis up? Well, isn't that the one that they're afraid of chickens? No. For the listeners, search out frauderist. You'll laugh. Anyway, so again, you know, you want to do the telltale signs of not doing those things, right? You don't want to put yourself in the authority position and judge everybody, but you got to do a couple of things for yourself, right?
So, for the first responders listening, I think the best piece of advice I can give you is when you go in and you have the big group family dinner or the big gathering or what have you, whatever goes on in your clan, and somebody asks you, what is the worst thing you've ever seen or what is the worst thing you've ever done? Make up your own mind. But my advice would be to not tell them, at least not before dinner. Like maybe on your way out when you're done, you're like, all right, I'm leaving here in like 30 minutes. I got time to tell this story and then escape. Maybe then. But let's leave the joy of the season joyful. And I don't know. I mean...
Well, I think get into it, right? You know, I think one of the things you do, and come on, you know, a deflection is a great and noble response to people. You know, so you have whatever. You have Uncle Joe that's an accountant, you know.
An accountant?
An accountant.
On OnlyFans or?
No,
or an actual CPA. Okay.
He's a CPA, a certified public accountant. And I think during the holidays, not to deflect a little bit from you, because ultimately questions are going to come down to any first responder, the worst run, like you said. Anything's going to come down to the mental health person, like, oh my God, it's a horrible time of the year, you know, which it is. It's a busy time of the year. Deflect, and I think something really easy to kind of drive the conversation is they ask Uncle Joe, the CPA, how's your year going? And literally just kind of deflect and start talking about kind of what their greatest accomplishment is. Like, what did you do really well this year?
Uncle Joe, what's the biggest fraud you ever covered up? Right?
Yeah. So what tax evasion person do you know? No.
But for those of you out there who aren't first responders, I would ask you this. I would ask you to stray away from that question.
Right.
Because for a lot of us...
Especially the fraud question.
A lot of us, the worst thing we've ever seen is what I explain when we train is that everybody's got this one run, right? Everybody's got the one that sticks with them.
Right.
It may not be the most horrific, the most gruesome, the most physically gory thing they've ever seen, But when you ask a first responder, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? It's that one run that still hurts.
Right.
And that's they don't want that dredged up. They don't want to think about it on Christmas Day. They don't want to think about it at Christmas Eve dinner. They don't want to discuss the worst thing they've ever seen. If they will gladly talk about 100 dead bodies and 100 mutilations, but that one thing, you ask what's the worst thing you've ever seen, that's the one that still hurts.
Right. And especially if it happened during the holidays too, right?
Yeah.
So if you know that somebody has a trigger point from it, probably don't want to talk about it, right? And not saying don't ever talk about it, but Christmas dinner is not the way to talk about it. Like, Grandma, can you pass the mashed potatoes? And you remember that dead guy? No. Let's not discuss. A couple of things that I think as for a first responder, you have to understand that, we talked about the parallel universe idea of it, is that in our joyous times, we have to understand that our joyous times are our joyous times. Don't differentiate from that. Make sure you know that when you are sitting down with your family, you are sitting down with their family.
That's family time.
Yeah, that's your family time. It's be with your kids, be with your aunt and uncle. We all have a crazy Aunt Mary, a crazy Uncle Larry. We be with them and enjoy that craziness a little bit, right?
Right.
And be okay with that craziness.
Let Aunt Bethany say the Pledge of Allegiance. It's okay.
Let the wigs fall off. The tubes fly. But be okay with being okay for that moment. And you don't have to talk about police work. You don't have to talk about that fire that you ran into. You don't have to diagnose an already known diagnosed family member. Make sure that you are literally just enjoying that time. And here's the deal. Put the guard down a little bit. This is your family.
Yeah.
Put
absolutely.
the guard down a little bit.
Let down the walls. Relax with your family. You're in a safe zone when you're with your family. So let it be safe. Let it be fun. Let it be happy. If you're lucky enough to be on vacation this time of year, be on vacation. Be away from the job and be in that moment. Be in the holiday spirit.
And look, and understand that there are, and let me go a little sentimental here. Let me take it out. This is a time of rebirth. This is a time of renewal. So we have to kind of look at it, not the renewal of, okay, here's New Year's, I'm going to wake up New Year's Day, realize I'm fat, and then run to the gym type of renewal.
Right, because I knew that yesterday.
This is, get a new understanding of where you are. Take a moment and do a self-inventory. Do the top 10 things that you really like about yourself, top 10 things that you need to change. Those positive and negative traits. If you could push that out there and say, look, these 10 things are really cool about me. Got a great personality. I'm caring, I'm loving, or, whatever it is. Then go over to the other side and say, these are the 10 shortcomings that I have that I know that I can improve upon. That I know that I'm way too sarcastic, or that I know that I have to improve upon my communication skills, or whatever it might be. Take that moment in this time to step back and really reflect on you. And then if hey, I'm not paying enough attention to these folks, or I'm not communicating with family members, I'm not loving people like the way I should, maybe it's the time to start doing it.
You got it.
Got that, Santa Claus?
Yes, sir.
What are you doing? That little Cindy. Have you ever, and outside of anything else, have you gone back and watched the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas?
Yeah, 2 days ago. I've been rewatching everything.
It literally, with an older adult eye, and watching How the Grinch, what a bastard. Oh my God. He stole everything.
But if you go back and watch it with a more critical eye than a child, you also realize this. The Grinch didn't hate Christmas.
No, he hated the
Who's. The Grinch hated people, and that's fair. Merry Christmas, everybody.
We kept it positive until the end. Hey, wishing you, your family, everyone out there that's listening, number one, thank you for listening to us, all our rants and raves over the years, and hopefully we gave you a positive message at the end. But thank you. Thank you very much for all the likes, the comments, the messages. Make sure you get on the web at thecopandtheshrink.com. Send us a message into the new year of what you'd like to hear and what kind of stories you want us to tell and so forth. But me personally, from the Shrink, I am going to say have a wonderful and very Merry Christmas and a beautiful New Year for yourself.
Enjoy your families. Enjoy this time of year. Take it all in while you can, and really just have a joyful holiday season.
So from the both of us, we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Follow us, copandtheshrink.com.